Welcome to Think Tank Live. Today we are going to be talking about auction day plans and strategies. Again, with me as always is Andrew Coulson and Brian Cannan, Think Real Estate. Hello, gentlemen.
Hi, Lucas.
So we're going to look at today is setting up a plan so we can control the auction day, or at least have some sort of control. That starts, no doubt, with preparation. How do we prepare leading into auction day?
Well, we've been talking about communication with your landlord, with your owners, with your vendors, your purchasers, making sure that you're having buyer meetings with them, and we're setting up the communication line. So we're all set and ready to go as soon as by the time you come around to auction week.
And we spoke a lot last week about those buyer meetings and what to say, and certainly getting them ready to, getting the deposit organised and getting ready to purchase on auction day if they're the lucky purchaser.
And their strategies.
And their strategies as well. What else can we do to prepare?
Preparing for your auction day, it's an art, something you need to get used to. It won't happen just naturally. You need to have the meeting with the buyers first, and then you need to have the meeting with your vendor, get an idea of where that's at. So the idea is that you have an idea where your buyers are, and you have an idea where your vendors are, and then we can start planning for the auction day. So it's the preparation for the planning is more important.
Once you've finished your last open for inspection, the Saturday before, the Monday, you're now into preparing for auction week and the coming auction.
And really the questions that you want to have answered in preparation for the day, there's a number of them, there's no doubt about that. We're obviously going to, at some point prior to the auction, needing to set a reserve price. Okay, we need to have that reserve setting meeting, there's no doubt about that. But we also need to have a couple of other boxes to be ticked. So for example, where you'd like the auction to call for a start and where you're happy to start for the bid. Why are those two things important and why are they different?
It's all around shaping, and as much as we'd like to have as much information as we can to be able to try and predict what may happen on at the auction, try and retain control for those sorts of things. So the more information we have, particularly about our buyers, what they're thinking, how many we've got, that's the sort of information that we really need to be gathering and being aware of, so that we can then work through that with our seller and try and be as well prepared as we possibly can.
Yeah, auctions is live theatre. And so as much as we can prepare well, we've also got to be able to think on our feet. And if you do one auction a year, you're going to be nervous not be able to do that. If you're doing two or three auctions a month, you're going to get used to the process and you're going to become very successful at it. But the planning part is just think about what you're going to need to tell your auctioneer before you start the auction. We'll start helping you plan what you need to have ready.
So we're going to start with telling your auctioneer obviously where the reserve price stands. Talking about where they would like to call for a start. So if you've been guiding in a campaign 1 to 1.1, you might be asking your auctioneer to call or nominate a figure to start, because that first bit's the hardest.
Yeah, but let's go back to reserve price. When you give them the reserve price, it should be, is that flexible? Is this the minimum they're going to take, or is this their goal price? And if we don't get that goal price, is there some flexibility there? And that's really important to know.
It's not a major concern if your vendor's giving you a higher number but they're prepared to vary. I think a lot of people get a little bit worried about, my reserve's that, but what's their second choice reserve, or where will they look to sell it?
A lot of owners like to have control. So and they talk to friends and people and say, well, put a higher reserve on. That means you do have control. We all know we can't sell until we reach the reserve. So they like to know that they've got control and they'll be able to make the decision at the time. So, but let the auctioneer know if there's flexibility there, and if you know a little bit about how much, let them also know that.
So, when you're sitting in that reserve setting meeting, which we're going to talk about later in the series, you might, as you said, set up that goal price and be okay or be comfortable in the fact that you don't know what the bottom line is, but be okay with, you're going to get it come during the auction, at some point in time.
It doesn't matter that you don't know their bottom line. Probably more importantly, they know where the buyer's line is. And that's what's more important.
Yeah, no doubt. So then we're going to talk about, the auctioneer's going to ask, whether they'd like to call the figure. So if you're quoting 1 to 150, 1 to 1.1, I should say, if you'd like the auctioneer to call $1 million to start to get that first bid, because we know it's the hardest. But starting is important as well, because often a buyer, how many times have you seen it? They offer a figure sub $1 million, say, but would you be comfortable starting at 9-figure, or what comfortable are you comfortable starting at? What's your take on the difference between the two and where the auction starts? Again,
it's about that relationship that you've got with your vendors. Hopefully you've built the trust that they are confident that you can control, you know what you're doing, you're going to be working with the auctioneer. Sometimes when we arrive, our clients asked us to have a bit of a chat with the vendors, because it's good to have an independent sort of voice. Say, listen, don't be too concerned about where it starts, it's where it finishes that counts. We want to make sure that all the interested parties get involved and show that there's competition. So we want to start it at a reasonable sort of level that's going to enable that competition to take place.
Yeah, I think they're the two words we've got to look at: momentum and competition. So if you've got an experienced buyer come to your auction, quite often they'll start high, and that means that momentum is hard to fulfil in the auction, and competition is hard to fulfil in the auction. So some of the things we've got to look at there is that, when buyers come to auction, they come thinking logically. Now, our job as auctioneers and as agents is to get them from logic to emotion. Well, having one bid doesn't change it. Having two bids doesn't change it. Third bid might start a little bit. The fourth bid, I've always found, now we're moving from thinking logically to emotionally. So if we don't allow them to have those bids, all the buyers to have those bids, then that momentum is not going to build up. We're not going to get that competitive price that the owner's hoping for.
But and I also like the position of trust there as well, because if we don't frame that to our owners prior to the auction, and they're not comfortable starting at 950 or wasn't prepared for the opening bid to be at 950, how's that going to play out to the auction, especially when you go out and you're asking them what's your bottom line or what is you prepared to sell at?
And this is where, if they're going to be setting a high or wanting a high opening number, it may be because they haven't got the trust that you're unable to control it or get it to that sort of number otherwise, and they need to be instilled in that get that confidence that, yeah, you can do that, but we've just got to work with the buyers that we've got there.
So the strategy around that, first of all, is how many buyers do you have? If I've got 10 to 15 buyers that are going to register emotionally involved, who cares where it starts? Doesn't make any difference. I just
it's
want
less important.
Absolutely, because I want them to make more bids. The more bids we get in the lower end, the more we're going to get at the higher end. Now, if I've only got one or two buyers, then we may need to look at the strategies not to start too far away from reserve, because the competition may be a bit harder to get. So that's the first thing. Try to know how many buyers are going to turn up. And I know that sounds so easy, and at times it's not, but that's where the relationship with the buyer counts.
Yep.
So certainly depending on the scenario, but we want to at least frame with our owners so they're ready and prepared for what the auction might start at, even though we call for a slightly different figure. But then we're also going to talk about increments from that point of view as well, because if we start at say 950 and we're all on the same page in that regard, the next question is, well, what's the first increment that you'll be willing to accept? Are you happy to go straight to 960? Does it have to be 975 or $1 million? And we need to open that dialogue up. Why is that so important?
If your owner's disappointed at the start of the auction, and it takes a while, and you haven't prepared them, when you go in and ask them a bit later on, do you want to sell, they're still having that mind of disappointment from the start. So it's a bit of negativity you don't want right from the start of the auction. That's where they've got to be. You see owners, and you see them on TV, and it starts to be like, oh my God, I can't believe it started that low. You've got to prepare them for that, because they're still thinking that while the auction is going along, and that negativity is going to bear out when you ask, are you ready to sell? They're still thinking of, why did you start so low?
That's right. May even ask you.
Absolutely.
Instead of comfortably where we are now, they're saying, but why did you start at 950? Why did you take 960 straight away? Whatever it may be. So but what is your take on, if you do start at 950, obviously situation comes into play here as well, depending on how many buyers you might have.
And quite often the area will dictate that. If you're in an area, some areas, an increase of 2,500 can be. They're thinking, this is 2,500 that's been hard earned, and they're pretty keen on limiting that. So depending on the areas, depending on the environment, we've got to be aware of who's there and how they're going to work. Obviously, we're wanting to get it rolling, get it moving, hopefully in good size increments, depending on how far we've started from the expectations. But that's what we're trying to do, is get everybody involved.
So If it starts a bit lower, yes, I always like to go in higher increments. But you know, some buyers, and it also depends on the buyer. If it's a first home buyer property, or if it's a more experienced buyer, you can ask for higher increments, investment, that they'll go with you. But you know, I've opened it up, and a person wants to go on $1,000, and I'll take it sometimes. And people will say, why would you take that? Because the next bid could be 4, the next bid's 1, the next bid 4, next bid 1, and then the 1 goes to a 5. And my job is to build them up from the 1 to the 5. But what I'm wanting is momentum. If I don't take the 1 and no one else comes in, then the auction's closing down. If I've got momentum, you can build the bids back up again. I've seen auctions start low, build high, go low and build high again. You know, you've got to have faith in the system.
100%. So. And you 100% right. Even if the auction slows down, by taking a 1, you can take 4 from the other party and keep those increments up. But right from the start, as you said, you don't you don't need to be nervous necessarily in taking a small increment from 950 to 960, because a good auctioneer and a great agent who knows the buyers, who knows how the situation is going to unfold, can bring those bids back up to a higher increment.
That can be their strategy to try and slow the auction down. And our job's not to allow, but our job is also keep the momentum going.
Yeah, hopefully if we've got good instructions from the agent that's said this is what the buyer's expectations are, this is how many buyers we've got, this is where I'm expecting them to go to, then obviously that assists us a great deal in being able to build that momentum and keep it going. And hopefully that's what they then get the rest of the team to understand.
Well, that's important. So once you've made your plan, you need to share that with your team.
And we also have a concept out there known as the floor manager. What is a floor manager's role, and what does it know for those people who may not know what they does on the auction day?
We see the floor manager's role very, very similar to what we as auctioneers. We watch the bidding, we see who's dominant, who's submissive, who's still going strong, who's reaching the end. And we can easily see where the bidding is going. Sometimes an experienced agent who's standing at the front is able to advise, now's the time to go and have a chat to your owner and see what their plans are. Go and have a chat to that person. They're strong. They need encouraging to keep going. Go and have a chat to those people. So it's a good way of being able to monitor how the auction's flowing, what we can do to keep it rolling along and keep that momentum going.
Yeah, so let's go back to the beginning. You build a plan, you share that plan with your team, and part of that plan could be that you might nominate some of the other salespeople to be with buyers, so you're not crossing between buyers. Some people get upset about that. And then you get a floor manager, and the floor manager is to manage the auction. If you're out there and you're talking to someone, you go into that space, and other things can be happening around you that you haven't caught because you're concentrating on that. When you turn around, if you're not sure what's going on, the floor manager's there to fill you straight in and tell you where you're to head next. So they read the auction and help you to what you've got to do next to make it work.
It's more than just agents moving around the floor and looking a little bit busy. You're actually coming over to the floor manager, and they can give direction as to go and speak to this person, go and do this. And it again,
it's now time to talk to your own.
Creates you're creating that theatre that the crowd are out there watching and saying, "Oh, look at this, look at that." You're just creating that anticipation.
Floor manager will orchestrate the auction and will help all the salespeople know what they've got to do, where to be, and what to say.
And that's the big thing, because as we said before, if your owner is setting a goal price and hasn't told you maybe what the figure they're happy to sell at just yet, as an agent or a lead agent, you might be running in and out, and it takes you 2 or 3 or 4 no's before you get the yes. You're inside, you're speaking with you haven't necessarily seen what every buyer has done. Little things, just little tiny things. Yeah. Have they made a call? Have they made something else? And the floor manager is able to oversee the whole process.
The floor manager helps momentum. They can move you into the owner and ask you to start asking questions about, are they ready, before the bidding slows down, because you can come back out and keep the momentum going. There's a number of techniques that you can use to do that. So the floor manager is helping that momentum. The days have gone where you should be waiting for the bidding to stop and then go to your owner. You should be into the owner and getting the first or 2 no's out of the way. That's where the floor manager will help you do that, because you can get tied up again and forget to do that.
That's right. That's right. We always say that it's easier to get a fire going, put a log on the fire, keep it going before it goes out. If you wait till the fire to go out and then put a log on to get it going again, much harder. So to keep that momentum going, keep that motion, the motion creates emotion, and that creates the bidding again, and hopefully that will just keep it moving on that little bit further.
And make that strategy or the tactical decisions and making the right one. And the floor manager and the auctioneer in conjunction with that plays a key role.
Absolutely. The floor manager and the auctioneer could be talking while you're doing things. So they can be relating. So the floor manager then can relate what the auctioneer thinks to you as well.
I mean, there was only an auction on the weekend where, we had one buyer who was just about, I think, 20,000 short of what the reserve was in our owners' minds. And our options were to either make a vendor bid on behalf of our vendor at the reserve price and then instruct the owner, the buyer, I should say, that we're going to sell beyond that. Or because of the floor manager in that particular case who had seen what the buyer was doing and his reactions, he was walking away at that level. If we put a vendor bid in strategically, he could have easily thrown his hands up and walked away and passed the property in.
It's about having the team working well together. It's the vendors, the crowd, everybody seeing a well-oiled machine, and it's there to get the result.
100%. Now let's talk a little bit about blueprint. So we've got all of the cards in a row, all of the ducks in a row, I should say. As an agent, what do you do? So the auction starts. We've hopefully got our vendor in line with what we're going to looking to call, start, the increments that we're happy with. We've hopefully got some relationships with our buyers as well. What's the blueprint? What's the procedure?
Well, first of all, remember it's theatre, so let's have a bit of theatre. Now, when you're there and the auctioneer is introducing you and your team, you should be there. Okay. But once you're starting that and once you've been introduced, move out to your buyers. Move out and have a chat to them. Now, they're nervous as anything. So you move out and say, look, here we go. Here's an opportunity. I hope you get it. Congratulate them for being there. I'm here to help you. Anything, any questions, good luck. And if you want me to bid for you, we'll all that sorted out beforehand. But be there with them, okay, when the bidding starts. Don't be with the auctioneer. He doesn't need you to hold his hand. He needs you in the crowd helping to get that first bid.
And again, more vocal calls from the agent, letting them know what's going on. It's all creating emotion, the theatre. People are looking around at different things that are happening. It's creating a vibrant auction.
So we've almost created that blueprint now, just in that regard. So we've got the team with the auction to start, moving out with the team with the buyers that they've maybe been allocated, depending on what the plan was. The floor manager with the auctioneer, overseeing the process.
And part of the team, different team members will go to the floor manager, just walking around, having a chat to him and go back. They mightn't say too much, but there's movement there.
Active. And the lead agent obviously is going to go between the buyer that they've been associated, that they're linked with, the floor manager, and the vendor.
Yeah, good.
Unreal. Now, what else do we say in regards to, last thing, Andrew, you spoke of, only yesterday we were talking about control in the auction and controlling the outcome. Can we control an outcome in the auction?
I remember some advice I was given by my auctioneer probably 20 odd years ago, and I was very, very nervous at the beginning of the auction. And Brian said to me,
what are you so... who don't know, Brian was the auctioneer.
Brian said to me, why are you so nervous? He said, have you done everything you should have? Have you rung all the buyers? Have you got your vendor at the right place? Have you done everything you could? Well, you can't really change it. Go out there and do your best. And that was it. And not always can we pull miracles out or really influence the outcome. We do our best. We give it 100% effort. And the result will be there.
Yeah, I find that selling at auction, the main thing is the mental state of the agent. Positive, confident to sell, more often you will, if you believe you can.
Yep.
Good advice.
We agree. So you've got to do all the work beforehand, and then you've got to let the cards fall the way they fall. And with the preparation and the control that you have and these systems in place, more often than not, you can help it fall in your favour. So we hope it helps everyone out there. On behalf of Andrew, Brian and myself, thank you. We look forward to joining you in a couple of weeks' time.
Have a good afternoon.